Happy Friday afternoon, everybody. This is a live emergency briefing. With this monster snowstorm on the way for large portions of North Texas, the Texas Panhandle, most of the state of Oklahoma, even southern Kansas, extending east through the Ozarks, possibly all the way to the Mississippi River Valley, some of the models are showing big-time snow happening. One change from yesterday, or at least over the previous days in the long range, is it does look like the subtropical high just off of the southeast is definitely getting stronger a bit. I think that means that it's going to keep the southeastern U.S., including where I am right now, largely free of that snow and the ice, but that is not the case for the southern plains, and that's where I'm heading next to intercept this snowstorm, Oklahoma City, maybe even down to the Dallas, Fort Worth Metroplex, and look at some of these crazy totals. Again, this model right here, I'm beginning with the most exciting model that shows the greatest snowfall totals. This is a loop. A couple things to pick out here is that this is from two different snow events. Two snowstorms are going to be coming in. One is coming in Sunday into Monday. The other wave is coming in on Wednesday. Looks like that wave could even go a little bit further south. And where the snow swaths for these two systems overlap, that's where the greatest snowfall is going to happen. And of course, I picked version 16, which is the upgraded GFS model. It's been showing these insane snowfall totals for a couple of days here. You may have seen many of these go viral, a couple of these loops as well. And this is also using the Kuchera ratio, the snow to liquid ratio. It definitely is assuming a greater than a 10-to-1 ratio because of the very cold, dry air mass that is in place. And the microphysics are going to support greater than 10-to-1 snow to liquid ratios. And that means that it looks like this first event could easily dump a foot in Oklahoma City that's coming through on Sunday into Monday. Some greater totals probably in western Oklahoma as well over the higher terrain. Then the next system comes in and there's a little bit more uncertainty with that. Some of the individual forecast model members are taking that swath of snow even a little bit further south. Some areas even in the Texas Piney Woods getting in on the action from that second wave. Some of the latest models are showing an increased likelihood for even Dallas-Fort Worth getting in on the action, especially from the second wave. Looks like a majority of that first wave, though, is going to lift off to the north. And this is from the Pivotal Weather website here, showing these model animations, version 16 here. My favorite model now because it's showing the incredible snowfall totals that are coming in with this. And this isn't your traditional snowstorm. There is quite a bit of uncertainty with this with regard to the track of the 500 millibar vort. However, with this massive Arctic air mass surging to the south, it's such a big-time air mass and really a general cyclonic upper-level pattern. It definitely keeps positive vorticity advection going over this area. Definitely keeps lift going in the mid-levels of the atmosphere over a very large swath. So also different than previous storm systems is that this swath of snow is likely not going to be narrow. It's likely going to be pretty substantial in size. This is by Sunday afternoon, midday. Let's go a little bit earlier. The snow begins to break out Saturday night across Oklahoma. Conditions should deteriorate pretty rapidly, especially Sunday morning. So this is 6Z, midnight on Saturday. Raton Mesa, you're getting hammered by snow by this time. Starting to come down into western Kansas, the northern Texas Panhandle as well. Starting to get some flurries down in Oklahoma by this time, at least according to this model, the GFS version 16. And we're going to break down some of the upgrades that have been done to this model as well and see if that's contributing to some of these really high snowfall totals. We're also going to break down the differences between the regular GFS, the older GFS, and the GFS version 16 and see why it's pumping out these substantial snowfall totals. But this is by Sunday noon. The snow really starts to break out, gets heavier across western Oklahoma there, Sunday midday, and then spreading in by afternoon, focusing across central Oklahoma through Sunday evening. That snow starts to move into North Texas as well, even DFW, but the heaviest snowfall is going to be a little bit to the north and west of DFW. It should be with this system, but then moving in there by late Sunday night, the heavier snow slides into the DFW Metroplex. By this time, the heaviest snow has already fallen across central Oklahoma by this storm system. And then look at the freezing rain, sleet, ice that could slide all the way down into the Houston area, pretty far south through Alexandria as well, even along the I-10 corridor, portions of southwestern Louisiana. By Monday morning, Little Rock gets in on the action, snow coming in here as well. And then we clear out a bit, get a little bit of a breather, a chance to make some snowmen out here, do some sledding across Oklahoma, catch up on those roads. Looks like Monday afternoon and evening, that snow clears out. That'll definitely afford some opportunity for some drone shots. Then the icy precipitation by Monday evening moves into portions of the Mid-South. That includes Tennessee, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama as well with this first wave. I'm going to break down further east what happens with this snowstorm as well. But first I want to cover the double-barreled nature to this system with Oklahoma. This is the next system coming out. This is by Tuesday evening. Snow begins to slowly break out across West Texas here, with the next system coming in, expanding across central Oklahoma as well by Tuesday night. This is Tuesday night, midnight. And this is the system that could dig down a little bit further south. Apparent surface low is way down here across northern Mexico. Definitely can see a general temperature gradient across this area as well. But this one digs down pretty far south and could become a coastal low that may bring some severe weather over portions of Dixie Alley, maybe on Thursday, it looks like, during the week. But this is Wednesday, midday, afternoon, and you can see heavy snow breaking out across the entire state of Oklahoma. Heavier snow a little bit further south than the first wave. And the European model shows this heavier snow focusing even further south, with DFW getting hammered by the second round and some of that heavy snow even hitting portions of the piney woods. One thing I've noticed is that the long-range and even medium-range models are incredibly inaccurate these days, and that's why even I haven't been posting much in the way of height maps for these when I'm greater than 5 days out. But now that I'm just a couple of days away from the snowfall beginning across Oklahoma, it's time to hype this thing, get everybody prepared, ready to go. This is Wednesday evening, big-time icing event, northeastern Texas, big snow on the backside of it, including portions of southeastern Oklahoma into central Oklahoma. DFW could get into the action, especially with the second wave. The European model is showing a little bit further south of a track with this southern wave here. A vastly different scenario, more progressive as well. This is the wave on Wednesday, the second wave, according to the European model. And a much further south solution here is offered by the European model, at least compared to the GFS version 16. That's why that initial snow map, even though it shows the highest totals across Oklahoma, it really has the greatest overlap between these two systems. That particular model does across central southern Oklahoma into far northern Texas. But if you look at the European, this second storm system is much further south. And the European also is a bit more progressive of a system. It pinches off the warm sector off the southeast coast on Thursday, so less of a severe weather setup in Dixie on Thursday, according to the European model here. But it does take a further south track, bringing a likelihood for snow further south in North Texas. This track also favors snowfall there across DFW. And you could get another icing event across central Tennessee and in northern Alabama with this next wave, at least according to the European model with that further south track. The GFS model, though, with that further north track with the second system, actually lifts the snow axis northward through the lower Mississippi River Valley. So really what I'm trying to say is there's quite a bit of uncertainty with that second wave. So right now, the GFS version 16 for Oklahoma into North Texas has the best case scenario for snow lovers, with the greatest overlap between these two systems happening central Oklahoma into North Texas with this one. I'm going to be heading out there to cover this system, both waves, and then travel it east and cover the severe weather across Dixie Alley as well, this icing event Wednesday evening. I do have an important meeting with Radar Omega that's either going to have to happen on Tuesday during the break between these two systems, or may have it on Wednesday if the severe weather looks substantial enough. But now let's break down where this Vortmax is going to head in version GFS, version 16 here, the newest GFS. First, let's look at the regular one here. And it's interesting. I wonder if the upgraded microphysics are allowing this extensive snow shield to produce much more abundant snowfall rates up there, further north into the cold side. It's very possible that that could happen with widespread lift at 500 millibars. And just kind of general vorticity advection here. This is the cyclonic curvature loft, and we can expand out a bit on a national level here. So this is the storm system that's going to lead to that first band of snow. And you can see here an open wave, general vorticity advection downstream of it, a large area of lift downstream of this system. So often what happens during these southern plains snowstorms is you get a very compact, almost a closed low that migrates east off the southern high plains and will track right along the Red River. That usually brings the heaviest snow into central Oklahoma. But in this case, we have an unprecedentedly cold air mass diving all the way down south. It's already in place. It's going to set records in terms of the cold temperatures. And then you get this large-scale trough coming in here. Not as much of a compact vortex in this case. You do have a lead vortex that lifts off to the northeast. It's going to bring the snowfall initially. Then you're going to have this next vort that's going to come through. And then here's the next system getting organized already. This is Sunday night. And here's the vorticity plot. This is for Sunday night at 6Z. And you can really see that vortex here finally lifting up through West Texas. Looking at the version 16. Let's see if it's any different. What a difference between version 16 and the regular GFS. Big differences even within the GFS members. This looks like a much more potent vortex comes in through West Texas here. That's why it has a lot of the heavier snowfall downstream as well. But when you look at version 16, it's a bit more of a muddy ejection. You get a lead ejection. The wave here, early cyclonic vorticity, some upper level support. It's going to bring that heavier snow into Oklahoma a little bit earlier. This lead vortex, some vorticity ejection ahead of this. And then there's another vortex that ejects a little bit after that. You can see this vort. So a little bit more of a muddy ejection between the GFS, the regular GFS, and the GFS version 16. Whereas the regular GFS takes this compact vort right along the Red River. Look at that. Beautiful, compact, organized vortex. This is by Monday morning at 15Z. And that should bring the heaviest snow directly over Oklahoma with that vort right along the Red River. In this case, it does have this surface low way down off of Houston by Monday morning. It does bring the frozen precipitation all the way down to the Gulf Coast, even potentially the I-10 corridor here. But boy, it looks like that's not really the expected precipitation shield that I would expect with that trough, that compact vortex passing right along the Red River there. You got that monster high off to the north here, but this is a pretty compact vort where I would expect some heavier snow, more vorticity advection upstream of this thing as well. North Texas, southern, central Oklahoma should get hammered by this thing. Whereas version 16 of the GFS definitely doesn't have this consolidated ejection. It kind of has a lead vort here on Monday morning, another one coming in back behind it. But it leads to a more prolonged period of lift at 500 millibars as well. With this lead vort here passing right over that colder air in Oklahoma. I think that's what the heavier snowfall is from this lead wave. And then also the GFS version 16 brings that next system further north as compared to the European model. Here you can start to see this shear vorticity begin to organize here. Starting to see some cyclonic curvature here as well with that system. Intensifying right as it's moving out of the southern Rockies here, out near the Four Corners and ejecting onto the southern plains. A lot of flow on the backside of this system as well. A backside loaded system. This is Tuesday evening. And look at this storm system ramping up back behind it. The second one is probably going to be even more potent than the lead system, at least in terms of the vorticity, the amplitude of the trough. Here you can see it has a positive tilt. It's going to gain a neutral tilt upon ejection from the southern Rockies on Wednesday morning. Boy, look at this thing. Prolonged period of cyclonic vorticity advection from these two systems in Oklahoma downstream. This is a nasty storm system here. Look at all this flow on the backside, still increasing in amplitude here. Looks like it kind of has a vort center here, but then a bowling ball of a vortex here at the base of the trough that's going to help deepen this thing as it ejects across the southern plains through Thursday morning. And this subtropical ridge down here off the southeast has ramped up and trended stronger with consecutive runs here over recent days. A couple of days ago, it appeared that the cold Arctic air was even going to make it over the southeastern U.S. and bring about it a threat of winter weather. But boy, have the models trended the opposite direction. That subtropical ridge is a lot stronger, and it looks like this storm system, as amplified as it is going to struggle with this subtropical ridge that continues to trend stronger. And it looks like this system is going to peak as it ejects from the southern Rockies over the southern plains and then likely shear out over top that subtropical ridge. That's happened a lot throughout the winter. As we get closer to spring, eventually that subtropical ridge will likely start to break down, and then you're going to see these storm systems less likely to just shear out like this. I mean, this just becomes a positively tilted, sheared out mess by this time, by Friday evening, as everything moves off the shore, off the coastline. But a very active week expected next week in terms of. Let's see if the GFS version 16 has a severe weather event during the day on Thursday. This is 18Z on Thursday. Big high amplitude trough here across Dixie Alley. A lot of flow downstream of it as well. Subtropical ridge here, playing the squeeze play between the two. So I do expect a big low-level jet. And look at that nasty low-level jet there on Thursday at 18Z. So GFS version 16 is not the only most exciting run in terms of winter weather across the southern plains, Oklahoma, and northern Texas, but also in terms of severe weather, winter weather across the southern plains, but also severe weather across Dixie Alley through central Tennessee, Kentucky there. This is looking like big-time severe weather. Dew points well into the 60s, even upper 60s up here. Alabama, southeastern Mississippi into Tennessee. But one thing to note is that the European does not show this at all. But yeah, if this model run verifies, this is going to be a pretty substantial tornado event on Thursday here. Alabama, southeastern Mississippi. This is one that I'm going to have to be ready for. That is for sure. Maybe I cover the first snow event, the first wave out here in Oklahoma, and then come back to work Dixie Alley for this event on Thursday. But man, this is nasty. It's version 16 here. You have got to be kidding me. Almost double-digit supercell composites out there. And the regular GFS also shows that warm sector lining up there over Dixie Alley. Big, deep trough downstream. It's going to be hard for this thing not to produce big-time severe weather downstream. Such a high amplitude trough digging down into northern Mexico. You've got this subtropical ridge here downstream to work the squeeze play to really help ramp up that low-level jet. Kilometer above the ground. Look at this. But boy, the GFS version 16 even looks better. More substantial low-level jet. Makes sense considering the trending stronger here with that subtropical ridge. A higher amplitude system here. And the European looks totally different. All its flow focused here on the east side during the day on Thursday. A weaker subtropical ridge. Less of a squeeze play. A weaker sheared off to the east low-level jet. So the European doesn't show the big barn burner of a storm system out here in Dixie Alley with big severe weather across portions of Alabama, southeastern Mississippi, central Tennessee there. But man, this is I'm going to go with this being more believable just because it's that intense, that exciting. It's going to be a big week next week for storm chasing. Big week for content, everything, you name it. This is a good website here to look at the upgrades with the GFS. Fanglin Yang here. I'm not great at numerical weather prediction. I am good at kind of noticing trends, because I look at the models so often. But, instead of looking at all the ensembles to determine how much spread there is, I just like to look at the meteorology and compare the system with previous trough ejections or previous storms that I remember, associate that with a level of uncertainty. And this one normally would have a lot of uncertainty with it, but I think because there's such a large area of cyclonic vorticity ejection, whether you have one that splits into two or whether it's a consolidated vortmax ejection over the Red River like the traditional or the older GFS is showing, I think this is going to be anywho, we'll leave that up to the numerical weather modeling experts. They are incredible. So, that's Sunday. Man, just look at all that flow on the backside of this trough. Just really encouraging them to attain the highest amplitude possible. This little lead wave ejection. So the GFS version 16 has a messier trough ejection, but it seems to favor a more prolonged period of snow, even with this lead wave. And then it brings about this next vortmax at the base of the trough further south. But the messy evolution of that lead system is also going to dictate the evolution of this next system that's coming in, where the European has a cleaner trough ejection as well. And it seems like with that cleaner vortmax ejection, you get a deeper, even deeper upper level system with the GFS version 16. Look at that thing. This one tries to do the double-barreled thing too, with this lead area of vorticity and then another area of vort along the base of the trough, which is going to be critical for severe weather to dig this trough deep enough to have a neutral tilt here on Thursday to have big severe weather and a big low-level jet. And this all depends on the strength of this subtropical high, which is trending stronger. So it seems like the GFS version 16 is picking up on this stronger subtropical high with that system than is the European model. See how it has a weaker, more suppressed subtropical ridge, a more progressive upper level system. And the models have been trending, especially the GFS trends are trending stronger with that subtropical high off the southeast. The GFS version 16 also brings that heavier snow into central Tennessee. Locations like Nashville, you should prefer this model run as well. I think I'm using a 10-to-1 ratio here. Still showing major snowfall here along the Red River across those two events, Sunday night into Monday and the day on Wednesday. The best overlap between those two storm systems looks to be right along the Red River into central Oklahoma, extending into northwestern Arkansas. The Ozarks are going to get hammered by these two systems. And then it looks like just one of the two systems is probably going to hit a little bit further southeast. So it's the first system that brings snowfall into central Tennessee. Icing as well. This is Monday evening. It's the portions of the Ohio River Valley, Kentucky as well. So it moves in during the day on Monday. Memphis could get hammered by this configuration as well. Coastal low down in the north central Gulf of Mexico. and then it finally lifts off to the northeast. That would bring a pretty heavy swath of snow through central Tennessee. Look at this 1037 high here across the upper Midwest. The squeeze play between those two systems, that's where you could potentially get ice and big snowfall just to the northwest of this ejecting surface low. According to the new GFS, north central Gulf of Mexico lifts northeast. Plenty of cold air in place with this initial system. This looks like a freezing rain event in Nashville. This is the regular GFS, also shows big icing with that surface low lifting off to the northeast. Man, southern Ohio gets hammered by this thing. Just a wonderful winter weather pattern next week for snow lovers. But if you have to travel, it definitely could get quite dangerous out there. This is within the NAM range. So the NAM also shows this similar track. The NAM seems to bring in a warm nose there for central Tennessee during the day on Monday. Probably a period of rain, and then as that low passes, should change it over to frozen precipitation. Not as much as the GFS is showing, but the NAM definitely has Memphis, western Tennessee getting absolutely blasted by snow and ice there. But it definitely is more uncertain further east with time that you go. And if you look at the GFS, the next system digs further south and lifts north to the west of central Tennessee. But with that subtropical ridge getting stronger and stronger, I think that there could even be severe weather across portions of Alabama, central Tennessee, southeastern Mississippi there on Thursday. So I'm going to have to keep a very close eye on that as well. So my plan in general is to head into Oklahoma City late tomorrow night, cover the whole event on Sunday into Monday. Then I may have to head down to Radar Omega headquarters on Tuesday for an important meeting. We're integrating live streaming, instrumentation, Team Dominator stuff. And then I'll be heading back up to cover the second wave of snow and then the severe weather on Thursday. So definitely a big week happening next week. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this initial weather briefing. I'll go live again this evening when the 0Z models come out and see how this thing is going to be evolving over time. But I hope you guys enjoy my weather reports. I'm bringing back the mustache here just to keep my upper lip protected from this bitter cold. And I'm going to intercept this storm with all my heart and deliver weather reports for you guys to enjoy and maybe update you on the conditions out there so you can make a decision on whether to stay indoors, hunker down, or whatnot. But the severe weather on Thursday, I'm definitely got my third eye on. I'll be chasing that on Thursday. Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, probably the second wave of that snow too in Oklahoma and North Texas. Thank you, Facebook supporters, for making my live storm chasing possible. I'll never forget you guys. We're doing classes every Wednesday evening, Storm Chase EDU, streamed exclusively for Facebook supporters. We had our first class last Wednesday, breaking down some base level dynamics even. We were looking at gradient, geostrophic wind. We were looking at them mathematically as well. We were looking at force balance, pressure gradient force, additional topics as well. We're going to break down case studies. In fact, we'll probably cover the whole meteorological curriculum when it's all said and done. But if I'm out in the field chasing, then we'll use that opportunity to do an educational briefing on the severe weather setup and apply some of the skills that we learned in earlier classes and with forecasting severe weather. I do need to expand my horizons a little bit and use model ensembles a lot more to assess the uncertainty with forecasting synoptics, looking at ensemble spreads and that. But one thing I've noticed is that the models outside of about 3 and 5 days are horrendously inaccurate. And I definitely learned that through trying to forecast for Category 6 and National Geographic and trying to plan a production team to get them out for these big events, is that the models will often show something completely different as you get within 5 days out of the system. That's why I've had to use a little bit of discipline to not hype this snowstorm until now. But now we are all hands on deck. Full court press, whatever you want to call it. We are hyping this system. And I'm excited when the NAM gets within range. But boy, it's GFS version 16, these upgrades, they are awesome. So another difference too that you'll look at when you look at these snow maps are the different ratios. You can use the Kuchera or the 10-to-1 standard 10-to-1 snow to liquid ratio. In this case in Oklahoma, the Kuchera ratio is predicting much greater snowfall than is the 10-to-1. And that's because sometimes the environment is colder than it could be. It could be a little bit drier. Sometimes the geography can support greater snowfall totals, like especially in the upper Great Lakes with lake effect snow. You can even get 40, 50 to 1 type snow to liquid ratios. And you can definitely notice big differences in these snow maps that are happening here between the Kuchera and the standard 10-to-1. And you can definitely notice differences over certain regions too. It does show the swath here across the northern Texas Panhandle. Then it kind of has a hole in between it. Then you've got this bigger swath along the Red River. Lesser totals, though, across southern Kansas and northern Oklahoma with a 10-to-1. But one thing that the Kuchera is showing is on the northern edge of this swath, there's going to be much greater than 10-to-1 snowfall accumulation. So even though the liquid is a lot lower up there, you're squeezing out a lot more snowfall accumulation with those colder temperatures on the north side of this swath. Whereas on the south side of the swath, the 10-to-1 and the Kuchera are showing heavier snowfall. So you're likely a little bit closer to a 10-to-1 ratio along the southern edge of this swath. That means that there's more liquid falling down there, a little bit closer to that 500 millibar vort track, especially with this version 16, showing kind of more of a messy ejection of the trough. But you definitely got to be, this is one way that the forecast models are innovating is by factoring in different snow to liquid ratios. And this one factors in climatology, topography. It recognizes that ratios can be far greater or even far less than 10-to-1. And look at the Cascades getting absolutely hammered by close to 100 inches of snow. That includes the Olympic Peninsula out there, Cascades of Washington and Oregon. And finally, the Colorado Rockies get in on the action. It looks like the foothills are going to be largely left out, kind of a classic La Nina pattern, moist west-northwesterly flow, hammering only the mountains, especially those western-facing slopes out there. Looks like Jackson Hole areas up near Yellowstone are going to get blasted by this pattern too. Much needed snowfall too across the state of Colorado out there and into the southern plains. Man, what a beautiful map that is. Look at this northerly flow lake effect coming down the length of the, Lake Michigan. Northwestern Indiana is probably going to get a ton of snow from this. So thank you, everybody, for joining me for this weather report. I'm going to give a more detailed breakdown as we get closer to the event, especially as the 0Z models come out tonight. Those are going to be very exciting. And we have severe weather to discuss on Thursday as well. So not just this mega snowstorm that we have to deal with, but we're also going to be working in that severe weather on Thursday. So thanks, everybody, for joining me today for this weather report. Of course, never stop chasing. And we'll see you guys out there when I head out into the field.